So I started a small media production side hustle hobby, and I made the biggest mistake you could make, not once, but twice, which is I bought the wrong camera. So, welcome to episode 1 of P Practical, and in this episode I'm going to be talking through the Sony A7 III and why this was the wrong camera for me and for what I needed it for. So the first thing I want to point out is that this is still a good camera. I don't have it now because I've sold them, but the Sony A7 III is a very good camera. So I'll be talking about why it wasn't right for me, but also some of the positives, and I will showcase where this camera did work. So the first thing to think about is, when you're purchasing a camera, what are you going to be using the camera for? Well, I just thought 4K podcast, jobs are good. And so having used 4K cameras on the podcast that we were on in the studio, albeit not the Sony A7 III, that was it. But I didn't give thought to what else the camera would be used for, where it could be used, the environment, the conditions, etc. I just knew that I wanted, for some reason, 2 4K cameras. So yeah, that's how we led to that. Now, how did I land on the Sony A7 III? Well, ultimately, I got hyped. There's no denying it, I got hyped. I was on a set where Sony A7 IV was used. Big up ONG Media. I keep doing that, it should be this way, ONG Media. Where ONG Media provided the equipment to film a concept that I had around weddings, which can also be found here. But in a nutshell, Sony A7 III was used, and I believe it was the Sony FX3. If I've got it wrong, holler at me, dog. But the 2 cameras and the 2 price points, the Sony A7 IV was the cheaper one, but I just really like the feel of it. I like the taste. I didn't lick it or anything. I like the texture of it. It was a solid piece of kit. So when I decided I was going to get my own, I had a couple of things that I was looking for. So first, had to be 4K. Had to have 24 to 30p capability, which is the frame rate at which it records. I wasn't necessarily aware at the time of what 60 and 120 could do. And it just had to look better than my iPhone. That was literally the 3 conditions that I had. And I look back now and I laugh. But it was a hobby, okay? It was a hobby. Now, very quickly, I understood there were limitations. So as I said, I did this because I wanted to be able to record the short back and sides podcast for myself. I need to get my hand movements right. This will come eventually. And so I wanted to be able to offer the show a 2 camera setup to be able to record. And I found out that the Sony A7 III, on day 45 of having these cameras, did not do recording for more than 30 minutes. Which meant I would have to ask the guys to stop the show, take a break, let the cameras cool down, and go again. Which, having experience recording myself, I knew was not practical by any stretch of the imagination. Now, what you've just seen happen there is one of my lights has run out of battery, even though it was meant to be able to run for 2 hours. So there you go. I'll show you what that is. There you go. There you go. One of these low batteries. Damn, it's hot. Anyway, let's get back to the show. So 30-minute recording limit means that I can't record a podcast. So that meant already the real reason I bought these was totally null and void. Now apparently there is a way to work around this, and the 30-minute limit recording is put in place on cameras that were built before 2020. This was to stop overheating. So apparently the camera itself is capable of doing it. You just need to find a workaround. I don't even know what version of firmware I had, because apparently everyone else's could bypass this, but the software that I had couldn't. So I never worked it out. I never got to do it. I did think about a workaround. which leads to the second biggest mistake I made, which was buying a non-ISO switcher. I was looking at the price of the switchers. To be honest, I didn't fully understand what ISO was. So I guess I just looked at the price, realized that switchers were mainly at 1080p, and took a punt. And that switcher basically didn't have ISO, which meant that all I could do was effectively record like the share the end product. That's what would be saved. So if you switch between one camera to another, that would come through, which is great for not needing to edit live recordings, obviously. But when you're trying to actually edit, it means that you can't, you get stuck with whatever it produced. So that wasn't a thing I could do. And I did think about, when we thought about upscaling this to a business, just buying a new switcher with ISO recording, which would get around that. Now, the next biggest problem, which I don't know if this is a massive problem with the Sony A7 III, but it's the 8-bit recording. So what that means is that you've got 16.7 million colors. Now, this sounds like a lot. 16.7 million colors sounds like a lot. And it also gives you 256 shading colors when in editing. So that also sounds like a lot. But what then I realized is that I had been editing 10-bit footage, which is 1 billion colors and 1,200 or maybe 1,025 shades, which is significantly superior. And why that makes a difference is it allows you to basically do what you want in color grading. You basically are not restricted. And it doesn't, 16.7 million sounds like a lot, but when you see the difference between the 8-bit and the 10-bit, it's very evident that you're working with less flexibility when it comes to contrast or adding in LUTs and colors. You've got less playing ground. And since using this camera that I now have, which is 10-bit, I can see already the, not complexity in editing, but it's given me more scope, giving me more options, and actually more considerations. That's not to say you can't make good footage with 8-bit. And this leads me to the positives. There is quite a few positives on this camera. So this is a true hybrid camera, but leaning towards photography. And I needed to go for filming. So therein lies the imbalance for myself. But if you're a photographer and you're just starting out, this camera is great for that. It's got 2 SD slots, which means you can have a backup card, which means that if you're shooting a wedding, for example, you'll have loads of space and you'll never lose those pictures. And for photography, this thing is phenomenal. Like, I took some photos and I love them. Like, pre-editing as well. Like, the pictures just look really crisp, really sharp, really colorful. And that's backed up by the 24.2 megapixel camera that it has. Now, for scale, at the time, I was using an iPhone 13, just like as my camera, if you like, because I didn't own an actual digital camera. So if you think this was double that was a 12 megapixel camera. So these are giving out good images. Let's not try and slate that. The next thing is that the build quality is durable. I took it out in the rain, I took it out in the snow. There was like a thunderstorm I took it out in once, and it took it. I mean, my video wasn't great, as in, like, that was more on me than the actual camera itself, but it took the rain. There was no leaks or anything like that. It was really well built. Now, for videos, I only ran into an issue when I needed to record more than 30 minutes, which only happened once, which was me trying to film my tattoo. And actually, it wasn't the main camera. I had two, and it would have been nice to have the B camera be in 4K. In the end, I used the DJI Osmo Action 5, and it did create an imbalance in terms of the footage that came out. But for the actual recording of my tattoo being done, I was literally getting my leg tattooed and filming like this using the kit lens, and we got some phenomenal shots out of that. So that was the only time I had an issue. But other than that, when I shot for the window restorer, each shot was maybe 2 minutes. The longest I think was like 5. For stolen tools, the longest was 10 minutes when we did interviews. So you can see that it is a hybrid camera. It can have its purpose, and the quality that it produces once you edit it is phenomenal. I believe that one of the events that we did where we were filming the interviews, the quality was better than anything else that was produced that day, and there was other big cameras, big boy cameras there, so it's not to be slept on. The other really positive thing is that this camera holds its value. Now, I purchased this camera in 2024 at 1,100 each, so that was on offer at the time, and this camera does go on offer quite often on Amazon. I believe Amazon is the best price I see for any cameras, to be fair. You guys can maybe show me somewhere else, but always on offer. At the time of recording though, it's actually at 1,379, so that is quite a lot. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying this camera at full price. Wait for it to come on offer, or buy it second hand. Now, I sold mine for, well, I found out what shutter count was. So one of them, I mean, you learn from these things, right? One of them was at 89 shutter count, and the other one at 500 and something. And I thought these were high numbers, so I totally devalued. One sold at 950, one sold at 850. I paid 1,100. I was more than happy with what I got back for it. I believe I probably could have sold them for more, but I literally sold them the same day on eBay, and the money came through. I sent them out. Jobs are good. And so you will be able to sell this for a good price. If you buy it second hand, I've seen it on eBay for like 600. I think the cheapest I saw was 600. But average between 700, and yeah, they're not as new as the ones that I sold, but this camera is physically good. So provided they haven't chucked it at the wall or anything, you should be buying a good sturdy unit, and it's a good camera to get you started with. It's got so many buttons, you can allocate buttons and actions to it, so it's a very practical tool. I did contemplate actually keeping one, but I decided to go for 3 cameras, and the money from selling the 2 paid for the 2 B cameras, so that's eventually what happened. So would I recommend it? Not brand new, not unless it's on offer and you want to spend that money, but keep looking out. I mean, Sony were doing a cashback incentive up until the 30th of Jan, I think it is. So if you buy a camera, you can get cashback. I've used it actually on the 3 cameras that I've purchased, and I've got £200 back across the 3, so that's pretty decent. I also bought the cameras on Black Friday, so the main camera was reduced from 1,700, I think it was, to 1,400, and the 2 other cameras reduced from 1,100 to 950. So you can save money here and there depending on how you purchase it, when you purchase it, etc. So one of the things I want to do as part of this series is share with you my learnings. So I have 2 sets of learnings actually for this specific episode. One is going to be around the camera experience, and the other is filming this because, you know, we've seen the light go off. So let's start with the camera piece. The first thing I should have done is researched. I should have researched the fudge out of this, because who knows, maybe I wouldn't have even got the cameras I got today. Well, I could have purchased those cameras back then, actually, is what I meant to say. So understand what you're going to use the cameras for. Think about all scenarios. If you're going into videography or photography, you need to think about all the different environments and all the different case uses, like portability. You need to think about the weather conditions. You need to think about how long you'll be filming for. These are all things that I didn't really think about, which was naive of me. The next thing is the budget. Now, I budgeted to Sony, not necessarily to what I needed, because I've explained I didn't research. But if I had set a lower budget, I maybe would have been forced to look at a better camera for my needs. I did flirt with a lesser camera, but I felt like I needed to have one camera that needed to be able to do photography, which was part of how the A7 III came in, but I didn't need two. So the budget, think about setting a budget and staying within that. And then if you need to go a bit more up because you can get a feature more, or there might be something missing on one camera, because let's just say as it is, I've stuck to Sony. You might be a Fuji person or a Canon person or whatever. Not that I've used any of those cameras, but yeah, the budget will help you to scale up or down in terms of what you're going to spend, and also what the capability of your cameras might be. So that was the main lessons on the camera piece. I learned that I bought 3 cameras, and I was going to buy the same camera twice and do 2 again, but learning from this, I actually bought 2 lesser cameras, which have the same capabilities, but they're not like as hybrid. They can do photos, but you know, I wanted those 2 cameras for video, so I have learned. Second set of learnings is filming this episode. So if you're filming an episode, and I'm hoping that when I watch this back, it's not as bad as it was previously, but first thing first, let's start with the light. Charge your lights, because the light has died here, and I've opted to carry on recording anyway, so it's all part of trial and error, this, like I say. Next thing was, I actually recorded yesterday, and I had a piece of my beard that kept on, it was so annoying. So brush your beard. Second, no, that is the second one. The third one, the lighting, as in, we're in overcast conditions. Today is raining, yesterday was overcast, and I did not have any sort of lighting, and it was actually really difficult to edit, which is why I've ended up recording again. Third, I'm going in retrospect because I'm reading my notes here. My notes are in front of me. So look at the camera. When I looked at the footage I filmed yesterday, I was all over the place. My monitor's up there, so if I've looked up there a couple of times, that's why. But yesterday I was pretty much the whole day like this, the whole video. Second thing is I keep saying wrong numbers. Next thing is the background. So I did actually film a really nice episode this morning for this, but when I looked in the background, my iPad case was hanging out there, and the camera bag was like really visible and open. It just looked really bad, so I've had to refilm this again. Yeah, I think looking at the lens was the main one. That's, yeah, filming this episode, that's the takeaways. So hopefully you've enjoyed this first episode of P Practical. I feel like it's gone on a bit too long, so we'll make the next one shorter, hopefully. But yeah, just if you've taken anything from this, just let me know, that'd be cool. Or if you think there's anything we could have done differently, I'm always here to learn, so would appreciate any feedback. So yeah, thanks for watching, and catch you on the next one.